Are about the repairability certification courses that we got going on. I'm sitting over here wishing we had some kind of a theme song. I got Welcome Back Cotter song stuck in my head. I don't know why, but the 1970s were just better at everything, I guess, other than the internet. They sucked at the internet. I got a few people that are backstage that are going to be pulled on a little bit. We're going to talk to you guys about repairability certifications from the Building Experts Institute, certification on the use of the National Academy of Forensic Engineers standardized methodology for identifying whether or not an asphalt shingle roof is or is not repairable. So if you are dealing with claims in any aspect where there is an argument over whether a roof is or isn't repairable, you need to listen up. This is going to be a live Q&A. You can ask us questions on the Facebook or on Vimeo if you happen to be watching us there. I'm going to keep this open on Facebook in case I can see that going on. So without further ado, hi guys. I got Chad Williams up at the top there. He is the author of the National Academy of Forensic Engineers methodology for assessing whether or not an asphalt shingle roof is or isn't repairable. He uses really big words because he's an engineer. He's very smart. He doesn't smile very often. He likes long walks on the beach. That sound about right? Long walks,
I missed the last part you said.
He's got bad knees. He likes short walks on the beach. We got Adelaide and Ricky McGrath in the sidelines here. They are both certified repairability assessors. We're going to talk to them a little bit about their experience or what they have going on that's coming up. And then that's Ben Fike sitting in the corner there. He's just Ben. He can help you out if you have any questions about the course or how to get tickets or where we're going to be. He is handling all the event logistics to go along with that. For all we know, he might even reach out to you. So I don't know why this isn't playing on the Facebook side. It's kind of weird. Yeah, go back to that. Bam. This might do it. Maybe it's not. Well, no, there it is. All right, now I can see your commentary. If you guys put comments in the Facebook page, Building Experts Institute Facebook page, you'll be able to see us live. Put comments here for questions. Okay, so the repairability certification is put on by the Building Experts Institute, and it is based on a standardized methodology written and published by the National Academy of Forensic Engineers, authored by Chad Williams. Chad, I got to know why you even decided to make this thing to begin with. What was your reasoning there?
Well, I got involved in a case, and there was an argument about whether a roof was repairable or not, mainly because they were trying to blame a contractor for a failure. So we dug into it, looked at the estimate from the insurance company, and we kind of determined that, hey, this roof shouldn't have been repaired in the first place. So the more we dug into it, the more we kind of went, we got a problem here. Very little had ever been written on the subject. It was just assumed that, asphalt composition shingles were repairable. And unfortunately, they're not Lego bricks. You can't just take them apart and put them back together. So
what about duct tape?
I could see some people trying to do that. But we basically started looking at it and started researching it, and we started going, there isn't a standard that says, hey, here are the things we need to be looking for, here's what we're running into. So we started researching, what are we doing, what are we seeing when we actually are attempting repairs, and what are the conditions that we have that are detrimental. And it turned out that most of the conditions that we were identifying as being detrimental were the same criteria that would have failed a shingle for wind damage anyway. So with that, we went ahead and started putting it together, and we put the paper together, and we presented it in California to the National Academy of Forensic Engineers winter meeting in January of 2020, before the world went crazy. And it went through the whole peer review process, legal reviews, and all those umpteen reviews it goes through. And then we were fortunate enough to have it published in the December 2020 edition that came out in early January 2021.
It's a great paper. The first time I heard about it, I got all excited because it was something that was absolutely necessary for the industry to have some kind of a standard methodology, because up until that point, we were all doing brittle tests and pliability tests, and jokers like me were teaching how to do simulated repairs and things, but it wasn't truly standardized. It was just a common method. This is what I do, kind of a thing, but everybody did it slightly differently. Why is that a problem?
Well, it's a difference in everyone's approach. You lead to people asking questions. And if we have a standardized method and it's like, here's how it is, here's how we score it, here's what we're looking for, then we can make sure that we're talking apples and apples instead of apples and bananas or apples and kiwis, as some of these things are right now.
Apples and kiwis. Yeah, that's part of the deal, I guess. So we have this standardized methodology. Do you think it's important that people use that even if they're not certified?
I think it's important that people use a standardized methodology. There's some legal significance of that. Legal significance, you go into court and you're going to say, hey, I made this determination. How did you make that determination? Why did you make that determination? And if you don't have a standard approach for even how you're doing it yourself and you're just winging it every time, then you can have a difference in how you've done it, and that becomes a problem. And then if you have different people that are coming at it from different perspectives, then you may miss something that's important. So if you want to be one of these guys who says all I care about is how much I can bend the shingle, and you don't care about the steel strip issues, you don't care about delaminations or any of these other things, then you miss it, and then you make a recommendation that is missing a lot of the puzzle.
That makes sense. So what if the carrier says, after you've done a repairability assessment, you got yourself certified by the Building Experts Institute, you know exactly what you're doing, you make a damn good report, and the carrier just says, we disagree?
Well, then I would invite them to bring out their contractor of choice to repeat it, and I would invite you to be present and document it, just like we would do with the same assessment.
Yeah, that's what I teach, and it works out really well. It's worked out for me every time. Every time they've sent out a carrier, the contractor that was sent out by the carrier was a lot more aggressive than the contractor that was involved in the claim, because everybody on the policyholder side, believe it or not, insurance companies, we're all paranoid that you're going to say that we caused the damage on purpose, so we're all extra careful, not the other way around. The process of removing a shingle just looks aggressive.
Yeah, you're absolutely right on that. And the other thing is, I don't know how many times I've been on a roof with a contractor and I'm like, hey, that just happened. I need to take pictures of this. And they're getting upset because here we're marking these things that are going on. They don't want these to fail. They want them to be successful. And they don't like it when we're sitting here going, hey, these things are what's happening. And it's just inherent to the process of dealing with asphalt comp shingles.
Oh yeah, they're totally feeling judged because they want to show that they're really good at what they do. So I've been on a roof once where an engineer lifted a shingle, did a pliability test. The shingle broke off in the dude's hand. And he says to me, I kid you not, a qualified contractor would be a lot more careful. I don't know if he's ever met a contractor before, but I don't know if that's going to be the case. That's the way it was, but that was his pliability brittle test. We see people lifting corners all the time, lifting a shingle up 90 degrees, lifting it up 45 degrees, putting a tool inside of it, lifting it 5 times at 90 degrees. Whatever methodology they use, it's not standardized. So if you have an opinion based on your method and somebody else does a different method and they have a different opinion, who's right? Who's wrong? We don't know, but if you're using a standardized methodology that you potentially agree to up front, then it's a lot easier to have an objective opinion where you can actually talk apples to apples, like you say. So we really like this thing. We think it's very impactful. And we get asked a lot, does this certification hold weight? Do the carriers recognize it? Well, I will tell you this. I submit to you, audience, who better to certify you than the dude that wrote the standard? I don't know of many certifications where the guy that wrote the standard, that was peer reviewed and published by an Academy of Forensic Engineers, where the guy that wrote the standard certified you. It's very rare to have any certification that is that strong. So you can't get better than that. Ricky, you've had this certification for a minute. Where did you take the class?
I actually did it online. As soon as it was rolled out, I was communicating with Danskin, and I jumped on board as soon as possible.
That's great. For those of you out there, you can get this certification both in person, where you're taking this class on tour, and there's a lot of different places we'll talk about, or you can scroll down this page if you're on the Building Experts Institute and find all the different events. But it's also available online. You can do this online at your own pace and submit a repairability assessment report to Chad for him to review separately. So you don't have to go to one of these classes if you don't want to. It's just easier to do, I think, in person because you get a lot more context. We show you different tools that are being used. You get hands-on training. So if you're the kind of person that wants hands-on training, you want to feel like you know what you're doing right then and there, you can get answers to the questions that you have. In person might be the way to go, but it isn't necessary. It's a very good course that we have online already that answers most of these questions and walks you through it all at your own pace. So it's up to you on how you want to do it. So you got the online certification. That's great. Have you had any repairability arguments with insurance carriers since then?
We had one. I went through and pretty much did the assessment within days after actually getting my certification, and the carrier sat on it they pretty much went down to the very last day before they could actually make a determination. I think it was 45 days. The state of Texas has a rule that they have to pretty much try to settle. And I think on the 46th day, they reach out to the homeowner. We went from an 8 shingle repair to a 70 square replacement.
How bad was it on the repairability side?
I don't recall exactly, but it was pretty bad. It was a very poorly ventilated GAF, 12-year-old natural shadow, and it was definitely a pretty rough situation on that one.
Is that one of those discontinued shingles that doesn't look like the new shingles?
No, it's not even discontinued. There was no other arguments to be made other than just repairability on, it was three separate spots. 8 shingles was the original prescription by the insurance carrier, coverage applied, and did the repairability in one spot and sent it in with, detailed analysis, and they drug it out as long as they could. I feel that they were trying to find a way to refute it, and they just couldn't.
They couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Well, because they'd have to use the only standardized method that exists, which is the same one that you used. It's the only one that exists. There's only one standardized method to identify whether or not an asphalt shingle roof is or isn't repairable, and it is this National Academy of Forensic Engineers methodology written by Chad Williams up there in the corner and certified through the Building Experts Institute. Do you think that anybody else might write a different standard at some point, or is this it, Chad? What do you think?
I expect that at some point they'll try to do something. I've seen some things where they try to say, oh, you can repair it just by, the NRCA manual or this, that, and the other. The simple fact of the matter is, when you look at the history of it, Hagen made a comment in one of their blogs, on one of their papers, I can't remember which, where the only way you're really going to know is to remove and replace a shingle. And I'm also aware of another one of their documents that talks about when you have mat transfer that you need to replace the shingles. And I'm also, after this paper was moving forward, and I think actually was published, I became aware of an article that Nelson had where they were talking about repairability limitations related to the top of the shingle. But I don't see another way that they're going to be able to do anything, but I'm sure that eventually they'll try to come up with something. The simple fact of the matter is, it really is good for everybody here to be able to see this and standardize on it. It's the same thing that we're trying to look for wind damage anyway. We're already familiar with it. Why would we want to continue to try to fight it? We just need to go, here's what it is. What's the truth? What's going on? And then make recommendations accordingly.
Okay. Have you heard of the ITEL repairability determination?
I have heard of it, but I have no idea what goes into it.
Adelaide or Ricky, have you guys ever dealt with the ITEL repairability determination? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I have no idea.
I haven't run into it myself yet.
Okay, so ITEL has, as a part of their offering, you can send them photos of your roof, and they will make a determination on whether or not the roof is or isn't repairable from photos. Any idea how they make that determination, or could possibly?
I'd love to know.
Who knows? I'm betting it has to do with a gut feeling. Maybe there's a dartboard somewhere where they throw a dart at a board and just make that determination, and most of the board says repairable. Potentially. Maybe the bullseye is the only place where it says not repairable. So if they happen to hit it, or they're basing it on age. Does age make a big difference on repairability?
It's one factor, but that's not quite the way that the insurance companies and a lot of people want to make it out to be. A lot of them seem to think that the younger a shingle is, the more juvenile it is, the easier it is to repair. Well, there have been a lot of issues with seal strip failures over the last several years, last decade, I'd say. And they've gotten really aggressive on the seal strips. And so what we're actually seeing now is that brand new shingles are very difficult to repair once that seal strip goes in place. And I've seen cases where we had shingles that were, I think it was less than a month or two old, where trying to get them apart just left the shingles in shards because you could not get you couldn't get the seal strip apart.
Yeah. I mean, separating those shingles is very, very difficult when it's brand new. I like to tell people, because the assumption is that if it's brand new, it must be repairable because it's totally pliable. And it is pliable. It's very pliable. But the seal is very, very strong. Very strong. Good luck separating the shingles. Good luck doing anything to access the shingle that you actually have to replace. You're going to tear it up because that seal is going to be stronger than the shingle itself. And you just can't separate them. It's nearly impossible. So a brand new roof is much more difficult to repair than, say, a 10-year-old roof when you're just talking about mat transfer. And then it starts to get too old, and then it becomes non-pliable, and you have issues with creasing from lifting it, and excessive granule loss, and hinging, and all the tears, and all that fun stuff. Decking has something to do with it too, though, doesn't it?
It does. Sometimes you're going to look at how well the nails are in there. If it's plywood, it tends to hold the nails a lot tighter than, say, OSB. Mm-hmm. And you also, if you're hitting a rafter, you can have individual fasteners that are a bit tighter. One of the things that I think that gets lost a lot of this is the delamination on the architectural shingles as well. Those are made of two components that are adhered together. There is a strip down the middle between the cut sheet and the continuous strip on the bottom. And then you've got the applique teeth, and you've got usually a couple rows of adhesive there. And one of the things that we start to see, particularly as the shingles get older, is that the sealants between the pieces of the shingle start to let go, and you'll start to have the shingle completely come apart as you're trying to do anything with it.
They're glued together, and it's two layers, and you're trying to rotate them with each other, and they want to separate. And because they want to rotate at a different rate. And so there's a lot of tension or torsion on that seal strip that's between those layers. So of course it does that. Or it'll break this way, and you'll end up having a tenting crease or something like that in between the seal strips. It's pretty interesting what occurs. In my experience as a roofer, an actual roofer in my day, I probably repaired 400 or so roofs. I found that roofs were most repairable between like 7 and 14 years old. But removing the nails caused more damage than installing nails all day long. I had more issues removing nails where I had pull-throughs or tears around them than anything else. And a lot of times it was like in between 24-inch rafters where it's real bouncy. That's where prying that nail out became somewhat of an issue. Or in the rafter itself, we couldn't get the nail out of the rafter. OSB was easy to get nails out of, though, I can tell you that. So, which makes you wonder about wind warranties and things if the roofs are built in OSB. That's why some of the high wind zones don't want you to use OSB anymore. Adelaide, you just got certified, didn't you?
I did just get certified.
What are you going to do?
I mean, the options are really limitless. I just got certified at the Kansas City event. So I feel I might be a little bit behind the curve here, but I'm excited to get this out in action. I've been fighting repairability arguments for years and years. I've worked with managed teams of building consultants across the country. I've worked on the claims side for about a decade now, and the repairability topic has always come up, and it has started to evolve, like you alluded to. So I used to spend hours fighting the brittleness tests when we're lifting at 90 degrees, which is too high. Then 45 degrees was too high. And then where does the limit truly exist? And And so when I heard about this class coming around, I was immediately interested, because taking the subjectivity out of this conversation is huge and desperately needed, because an adjuster can sit there all day and say, you've lifted it too far, you've used the wrong tools, and what ammo do we truly have on the policyholder side to come back against that?
Mm-hmm. The last time I heard someone saying it was too high, it was more than 2 inches, so that was too high.
Exactly.
That's the height of using the roof snake. That's how high the shingle might have to be lifted if you use the roof snake. That's where the 2 inches came from.
Precisely.
That was a State Farm comment, just to name somebody. So you took the class in Kansas City. How was it? What was your experience?
It was all right.
Yeah, it was okay.
That's fine. No, it was great. I would say it's well worth my time. And I've since been promoting it to my circle, because I truly do see it as a value add. For anyone in the industry who is trying to better themselves and learn, I feel I'm fairly knowledgeable in this industry, and I learned a great deal from this class. Previously, assessing repairability and brittleness, we often focus on that crease at the top of the shingle, or the delamination, or features that you see on the face of the shingle. And what I appreciated about this class is that we examined everything. And so we're not even really talking about the creasing when whether or not that occurs. That's a component to it. But you're talking about every aspect of the shingle, of the decking, of the felt, and everything that goes into that roof surface. And truly building an objective argument that everyone should be able to align on, without really bringing in the subjectivity of the wrong tools or the height at which the shingle is being lifted, right? So I think it's great, and I'm excited to see this receive more adoption on the policyholder side, but on the carrier side as well, because I really think that having a roadmap that everyone is following really makes this a lot easier for everyone. And I will say too, another feature of the class that I enjoyed was that the true focus wasn't just on making sure we're proving that every roof is not repairable. It is, again, creating that objective opinion on gauging whether or not it is. And in some cases, it will be repairable. There's plenty of roofs out there that are. But when they're not, now we've got the objective documentation to back up that argument, so we can hopefully put this issue to bed now.
And you said all that so eloquently. I kind of want to have you take all my other courses just so you could talk about them. We're getting some snippets on that, right, guys?
Absolutely.
Cut that, I'll get endorsements. I got an hourly rate. We'll talk after this.
We might have to. That was great. Now we definitely want to. Sometimes it's repairable. You know, we talk about that pretty heavily in the class. One of the things that surprises a lot of people, I pull up that roof snake, which I don't have in front of me, and I say, should we use this to pry the shingles apart? And a few people are always going to say yes. And should we use this to pry the nails out? A few people are going to say yes. I mean, why? Because State Farm wants us to use it. Why not use it? Because you're a professional, and it's a terrible tool for doing those things, and you're going to tear the shingle up. That's why you don't use it. We're not there to try to damage the roof. We're there to assess whether or not it's really repairable using proper tools. That tool might be able to be used in some special circumstances for installing a nail, but it's a terrible tool for separating the seals because the wedge is too thick, and it's a terrible tool for removing the nails because it's too narrow and the wedge is too thick. You're going to damage the shingle. Don't use it for that, not even for a video post on YouTube. Don't do it. You're a professional, and we teach you to be a professional and use your best judgment. And if a tool doesn't work as you're going, if it causes more damage, switch tools halfway through to see if another tool would do better. And if another tool does better, then that's the tool you ought to be using. We want to give a fair assessment. And if it is deemed to be repairable, do repairs. It's repairable. All we're assessing, though, is whether or not the shingles themselves are repairable. There might be a much more costly repair involved because of the location of the damaged shingle on that roof. Maybe it's near a vent or a valley metal or a hip or a flashing of some kind, and that requires you to replace a lot more shingles as a result in the process of replacing the flashing that's attached to it. We are assessing whether or not the shingles are repairable, and in those cases, you're just going to have to explain that we have to replace a lot more shingles than what they said, but we can do them individually, and that's fine. But it might still be a fairly pricey repair when it's all said and done. This is something we want to teach you how to be a professional, how to have an objective opinion, how to actually promote whether or not this is truly repairable. Use that certification for good, not evil. If it's repairable, tell the insurance company it's repairable and send that in. It's going to be repairable sometimes. What kind of repair can you make? Can you make a perfect repair? You can never make a perfect repair. Never. Because you're going to leave nail holes behind. I'll prove it to you. Every claim could be a total loss if you follow true indemnification, which I submit to you is not truly possible and not what insurance policies actually pay for. Insurance policies pay the amount that's reasonably necessary. So if I take a shingle out and I'm removing nails, I'm leaving nail holes behind in the felt and the decking. I put a new shingle in, I put new nails in, I'm putting new nail holes in it. That's not pre-loss condition. That's not true indemnification. Now they have more nail holes. I need to replace the decking now. So I removed the decking. The decking was nailed to the rafters. Oh, and I got nail holes in the rafters that weren't there before. That's not true indemnification. We don't want nail holes in the rafters. So now we have to replace the rafters. And that replaces the ceiling joists and the walls and the siding and guts the house. And now we're down to the foundation. But the foundation has some kind of fasteners that was holding the whole thing in place too. And now we have nail holes and fastener holes all throughout that. We got to remove the foundation. We got to remove the land. All right. The air quality is not right either. We're removing the air at this point. Everything can be a total loss unless you're trying to achieve a reasonable repair. And that's what we're trying to do. And that's what it will assess. This is a fair assessment. The insurance companies will agree this is a fair assessment. Some of the engineers at the National Academy of Forensic Engineers that looked at this thing as a peer review were probably from the carrier side. Am I wrong, Chad? Were they on the carrier side?
No, there were people that were in the room when we presented it, and there were people in the review process who were from the carrier side.
Of course. It's a fair assessment. It's about as fair as you can get. It is best case scenario for those shingles. You go in the middle of the field. There's no vents, there's no valleys, there's no hips or ridges involved. Best case scenario for that roof. Can the shingle be replaced without causing further harm? How much further harm does it cause? Is it such a small amount that when you replace the further harm that was caused, it's still deemed to be fairly repairable and less expensive than replacement? That's what we're looking for. It's a good class. It's a great certification. It is certified by the author of the standard that we are teaching you to utilize and stick to as hard as you possibly can. Stick to the letter of the law in this thing. That way it's defensible. All right, I'm going to look at the Facebook to see if there's any questions. Is there any documentation on removing vents and replacing them, removing shingles to access them? Well, the installation guidelines for those vents show you how they are installed in course with the shingles. There'd be no way for you to remove a vent without uninstalling some shingles and potentially felt. It's installed all the way down to the deck. So, yeah, there's in the installation guidelines for those vents, you have plenty of documentation on that kind of thing. We could potentially write a white paper about that as well, Chad. I think that's actually a good white paper for you to consider. We've been working on writing some white papers. We're going to white them.
Last day rabbits were whitening.
So glad you went there instead of racist. White them. Yeah. All right. We're going to write some white papers on that thing for sure. Why does anyone... Oh, I lost it. Oh, what happened to it? Please do. There was a question, and that question disappeared. Oh, there's a lot of comments on here. All right, it's updating on me, guys. Bear with me. It won't give me all 28 comments. Why won't it give me all 28 comments? That's annoying. All right. John, I don't know if you're able to see these. Click on the live stream, he says. Yeah, let me do that. Okay. Clicked on the live stream. Live chat, I don't want that. I want all the questions. Overview. Comments. Here we go. Please do. One shingle equals complete demo down to the slab and rebuild. That's true. If you want true indemnification, is it possible? I don't think so. Adelaide, how do you feel about that? Do you think true indemnification is possible?
I think there's a couple ways to look at it. I think we look at it more surface level. I mean, you can get granular with it, yes, but when you look at pre-loss condition, I mean, are you restoring it to face level value, right? The face level relative condition it was in before the loss, I would say.
Yeah, if you're looking at it from a valuation standpoint, pre-loss condition or indemnification is to bring the policyholder back to a similar financial condition, the same as beforehand. Of course, if it's a replacement cost value policy, then they're getting better than that anyway most of the time. But leaving a nail hole behind in the decking probably doesn't reduce the value of the home. Why does anyone ever address the holes left in the felt after removing the nails and not being able to reuse the holes? Felt is not supposed to be perforated. The reason is that you can reseal those holes. You can take roofing cement, ASTM compliant roofing cement. That's not the low grade one. That's like one step up, one shelf up. You don't have to go top shelf, but don't go bottom shelf on the roof sealant. And you can squeeze some of that into the nail holes all the way down to the decking, and you've sealed the felt. Now, if there's a tear in the felt that's more than an inch long, or a hole in the felt that's like more than an inch square, then most of the underlayment manufacturers would say that that is not repairable at that point. You would have to replace that area. So we're looking for that kind of a thing. But nail holes, it can just be sealed up, and the felt manufacturers are okay with it. Even if you install something, if something gets torn during the install and it's that small, they just put a dab of sealant on it, you're fine. They don't ask you to remove that whole run of the roll and put a whole new set down. I've been swung. What else? At what point do you give up with the claim? Oh, he's asking Christian Nix that. Let me find out what Christian Nix is saying.
So I think scroll up to the top.
Scroll all the way up. We got all those events. You know what? This is a good time for us to talk about when we're doing stuff, and then give them the giveaway. There's a giveaway. All of you that have been watching this for this long, we appreciate it. I don't know if you know what this thing is. This is a Clawverine made by Prime Grip. It is my favorite flat bar for many reasons. It has to do with the angle of attack it has here, how thin the wedge is at the top, the width of the tool, how deep the nail sits inside this thing. But the real benefit is in the hook head. So if the nails are too high up, it's high nailed. Sometimes getting the claw end of other tools up in there to pry out the nail the rest of the way will end up damaging the shingles. But with the Prime Grip, I can get up under the shingle pretty far, hook around the nail, and get it the rest of the way out without having to lift shingle very often or very high. It's a great tool. It's a fantastic tool. We're going to give one of these away. Tell them about it, Ben. How's that work?
So yes, so with every ticket purchase, I'm going to put the comments here. Every ticket purchase for the in-person class, you use webinar 2 as the promo code. We are going to ship you a Clawverine to use for your assessments.
There you go. That's a chance to win. Win something awesome. It's really good. We're not even sponsored by this company, by the way. Legitimately, this is my favorite tool. We don't get any money for that. We haven't done anything with them. We might soon. We're hoping to develop some kind of partnership with them, but we don't have that. Just so you know, legitimately, it's my favorite tool. I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. All right, we are going to be next week in Houston, Texas, on Monday. Houston, Texas. It is on Monday, right?
Correct.
I should probably pull these up. Building Experts Institute, Institute is a website.
I listed them all in the
page. All right. Houston, Texas is on July 14th. That is on Monday. Monday, July 14th will be in Houston, Texas. If you guys are anywhere near Houston and you want to get certified as a repairability assessor by Chad Williams, the author of the standardized methodology, then you should be in Houston, Texas on July 14th and see us in person and get hands-on training. It's both in English and in Spanish. You can buy a ticket that's in Spanish, and then Lee Olivares, who wasn't able to be on the call because of a delayed flight, will be teaching it to you in Spanish. We also have on July 19th in Chicago, Chi-Town. We're going to be in Chicago. That's a Saturday. Next, not this coming Saturday, but the following Saturday, July 19th, you can get certified in English or in Spanish in Chi-Town. Chi-Town, you guys have a ton of repairability arguments going on. There's a lot of asphalt shingles out there. It's a difficult market. They'll agree to a handful of damaged shingles, but then they'll say it's all repairable. So you have to be able to prove to them that it is or it isn't. And you need that additional evidence to make this work. So I think for Chicago, that's an especially important state to have, like Chicago State. Illinois, it's an especially important state to have this certification. That is on the 19th. On the 21st, St. Louis, Missouri. St. Louis, Missouri. I haven't been to St. Louis in a while now. It's been some time. I'm actually looking forward to going back out there. And then on the 24th, Denver, Colorado. Good old Denver. Denver is another state that has a ton of repairability arguments. There's a lot of hail out there in Denver. There's not as many arguments like on hail, but they have a lot of wind claims to go along with it. Sometimes the hail claims they pay for like half a roof, and then it's still a repairability argument. Even if you're in a matching state, a lot of times there's too much of a fight on whether or not something is or isn't matching. And it's better to just let them know the roof isn't repairable anyway and do a repairability argument. Do the repairability assessment. Baltimore, Maryland on August 5th. On August 7th, Hartford, Connecticut. We've been asked to go to Connecticut for a while. There is a large market out there that is dealing with a lot of crap, mostly Latino market that will have that one. All of these are available in English and in Spanish, by the way. We will be in New Jersey, in the whole state of New Jersey. We didn't put the city down on this one. That's a big state, Ben. We'll be somewhere.
Special location to be announced yet.
In New Jersey on August 12th. Philadelphia, Pennsylvania on August 14th. Indianapolis, Illinois on August 27th. Columbus, Ohio on August 29th. All right, that's our tour right now. You guys are anywhere near any of those, I definitely think it's a good idea for you to do the hands-on in-person training. I think it makes the most sense for you to do it that way. There's a lot of information. You can get certified on the spot, but there's so much that you can do in person to really feel the differences between things. If you've never done repairs before, highly, highly recommend you do this in person. If you've done repairs before, then the online version really isn't that big of a deal for you to do, and that would be fine. You're just going to learn the process and the procedure. But there is some things that we teach during the class in person and questions that we can answer that can definitely help you out. So that's where we're going to be. You can find all that at buildingexperts.institute. That's our website. It's not .institute.com. It just ends at .institute. Buildingexperts.institute. And you can go to the events page that's on there. Ben's going to post a link in the commentary. If you guys have any questions for us, you can find us, ask questions from that website. You can reach out to Ben or myself or Matt Danskin. If you have any questions for Chad, you can reach out to him directly. We would be very, very happy to answer your questions on this. We're very excited about this certification. We think it's going to make a huge difference for the industry. It gives us something to work with when right now it seems like everything is deemed to be repairable, and that we are providing you the ability to give true evidence to say otherwise, or to say that they're right, that it is repairable. Okay. Are there any final questions that are on here that I'm missing? Running into repairs with discontinued shingles, and multiple carriers are recommending the careful manipulation of the shingles to reuse them. Well, to reuse them. That's weird. Well, you can't reuse asphalt shingles. That's against code. Code says you shall only be allowed to reinstall slate and tile. Not asphalt shingles, because asphalt shingles isn't in that list, and that means that they don't allow it, because nail holes violate the integrity of the asphalt shingles. They tend to tear, they get damaged. They're just not designed to be removed and reinstalled. They're not that kind of a longevity product. So you can't just reuse them. I think that you might have meant something else, but careful manipulation, yeah, you should be careful when you are dealing with them. It doesn't mean that if you're careful, it won't damage, and if you're not careful, it will. We are teaching you to be careful, and it's still failing. Go ahead, Chad.
What I'm seeing right now is you're seeing people say that you can remove shingles from one slope, put it on another slope. And they're saying you can salvage it like you can tile or or some of those things. In some cases, you can do that. We're also seeing it where they'll say you can manipulate around certain appurtenances and that you can just nail them back down and they'll be perfectly fine. And I suspect that's probably what the context of this is. But that's been my observation.
Yeah. And just because someone can say, well, if you were extra careful, you'd be fine. If that repair takes you an hour and a half to remove one shingle because you're super extra careful, and that just means that your repair is going to be very expensive. And at some point, there's too many of those to be done, and it's still more costly to repair than to replace. And that's the ultimate calculus that we have to figure out. Is it cheaper to replace than to repair? That's what they care about. That's what they should care about. All right. I hope that answered enough of your questions. I think that we've gone deep enough into this. I don't see a lot of questions coming out right now. So,
Matt, do you want to talk about the third party with another contractor or certified person in your market?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So on our website
and the registry as well.
On our website, we have a directory of all of our certified repairability assessors. If you guys get certified, you get on the directory there as well. Anyone can go on that directory and find you and hire you if they so choose. They can also verify your certification on there. But people are getting hired off of there to do repairability assessments. If you don't have that certification, you can hire someone to go out and make that repairability assessment for you. And it depends on who it is and what they charge, but they will write the report. They'll do all the deal for you. So if you want to get hired as a repairability assessor, getting that certification is a great idea. You can go out there and do those kinds of things. It's a really good certification for appraisers for that reason, and people that just want to do a bunch of repairs. It is still the only standardized method to determine whether or not an asphalt shingle roof is or isn't repairable. It doesn't matter if we're talking about insurance-related stuff or not. You can get on that. If you are a public adjuster, you can get yourself certified. I don't think it's a good idea for a public adjuster to actually be the one manipulating the shingles and performing the repairability assessment. I think that they ought to be there and directing it and observing and writing a report based on what occurred, but not actually performing it because you're not a roofer. That was a hard thing for me to figure out as a public adjuster when I used to be a roofer that was doing a lot of this stuff. Even if I was better, I didn't have the credentials anymore. So there's a lot of public adjusters. There's attorneys that are getting certified in this in order to be able to ask the right questions in depositions and things. There are engineers getting certified in this so that they can observe a contractor performing these duties and be able to use the standardized approach on whether or not it's repairable for their reporting. So this is for everyone. This is for insurance companies too. This is not one-sided. All right. If you're an insurance adjuster, an IA, if you're a ladder assist, you want to get certified as a repairability assessor, we're just going to teach you how to use this standardized methodology. We're not going to teach you to cheat. We don't teach anyone to cheat these things. This is a fair assessment. So come on out. It's unbiased. We would love to have carrier side reps there. We've had a handful so far. We would love to have a lot more of you. All right. What if you're a PA and a licensed roofer? Richard, that's a great question. In my opinion, even if you are a licensed roofer, having a third party perform the assessment is always better documentation because it takes the bias out of it. A third party isn't going to have a vested interest in the outcome. So if you got yourself certified, you could still hire another certified individual that isn't related to that claim and have them come out and do the assessments, and then you do repairability assessments for others elsewhere, or hire a contractor that is a third party and you observe and write your report because you're the certified individual, one or the other. You can always do the work as the contractor that is part of it as well. There's nothing to say that you can't. I'm just giving you the options that would give you the best chances of the carrier not fighting back on it. Because if it's true third party, what are they going to say? You were too aggressive. You weren't. You didn't even do it. And the person that did it doesn't have any kind of interest in the outcome. And that's about the best possible evidence you can give anyone, is an unbiased piece of evidence. Did that answer the question you were asking, Ben?
I believe so. Yep, that was great.
Hold up that Claverine. Hold up that Claverine. Belts out of big time for us and make Joshua Robert Bigger proud. Yeah. Yeah. The best damn roofer. This is a company he's involved with that makes this thing. Big time. Big time. All right. Any other questions? Did we hit everything? We good to go, guys? You guys have any final statements? Ricky, should they do it?
100%.
Ricky, you're going to be in Houston, right?
Next
for
week.
Monday.
Yes, sir. I'll be there.
Nice.
And what do you think about taking it in class versus the online version?
I think the interaction's good. Me personally, I mean, I like to just get through things. I think as soon as I enrolled online, I pretty much did it as fast as possible, and I couldn't get Chad to approve or review my videos submitted fast enough. So I had to wait a few days for that to all happen.
Excellent.
I'm kind of the same way. I think that if you've done a lot of repairs in your career or something along those lines, there's probably a lot of aspects of this class. You could still learn something in the in-person, but I think that you're probably going to be just fine doing the online. It is the same price, by the way, doing it online versus in person. It isn't more money to go in person. And you get a free lunch out of it. So maybe it's less money because you don't have the lunch included. I don't know.
And a claverine when you use
and there's a potential claverine involved. That's true. Potential claverine.
Big time.
Well, I haven't attended the class yet, but I assume once the class is done, everybody is pretty much certified as soon as the class is over, correct?
Not everybody. You have to pass an exam and you have to write a solid report. So
after the class,
we've had some people retaking exams in the past. It's not a given. All right, you do have to actually learn this stuff, and then show Chad that you know how to use his paper because his reputation is on the line. He wants to make sure that it's being utilized well, and we like to see these things because it allows us to adapt our reporting. So we have a report that we have you guys fill out, a standardized report form, so that it spits out a standardized report with your logo on it. That way we can have a standardized format for the reporting as well. So we're adapting that constantly to be better and better as well. So there's all kinds of stuff going on behind the scenes, but we're pretty proud of this one, guys. It's worthwhile. It will pay for itself very quickly. And just getting credentials is always a good idea anyway. So I think it's a good idea. I'm biased as hell. We got some people in here that have the certification. I think that they're happy that they got it. Adeline, you're happy you got this thing, right?
Mostly.
I should stop asking you questions. You give such a glowing review, but also sarcasm. And I don't know if the audience catches it.
Got to keep it lively.
Right. Got to keep it up. All right. I think that's enough. We want to see you guys out there. So take a look at the links that we have in the commentary. If you have any questions, reach out to us. Thanks again, guys. We will see you next time.